Good evening and welcome to Northwest Newsweek. The province of Ontario announced this week that it's taken a major step toward developing the Ring of Fire. Premier Kathleen Wynne was in Thunder Bay on Monday, where she announced plans for an east-west road from Pickle Lake to the rich mining area. The project would also connect the Webequie and Nabinimik First Nations to the provincial road network. Molly Fromer has more.
We have reached an agreement to build a road into the Ring of Fire. We have reached that agreement.
Premier Kathleen Wynne, alongside Ministers Michael Gravel, Bill Morrow and David Zimmer, were all in attendance for this big announcement. The Ring of Fire is one of the largest mineral discoveries of the past century. And now, after years of talk, Ontario is planning an east-west road from Pickle Lake, which will also be connected to a pair of remote communities, Webequie and Nabinimik. Wynne says this announcement would not have been possible without the help from route studies by the First Two Nations.
As a result of the report, there isn't yet a full consensus among all of the First Nation leadership on exactly what the route forward should be. But what I said and what our government said to the First Nations was where there were willing communities who did see an opportunity and did have agreement in their communities about how to move forward in partnership with government, in partnership with industry, that we would move on those roads.
An opportunity for other benefits as well too, connecting to the mainstream society, and also to address some of the high cost of living in our communities.
The two communities are working to begin an environmental assessment of these projects by January of next year, if all goes as planned.
Well, the feasibility work starts today, and we hope to have shovels in the ground the beginning of 2019. We continue to hope that the federal government will see the importance of a project of this scope and that they will step up, but we have been very clear we're going to move ahead regardless of their commitment.
The president of Noron Resources, which has been working to develop its Eagle's Nest nickel mine and its chromite deposits in the Ring of Fire, was very pleased with the news.
This is the announcement that changes everything. The mineral deposits in the Ring of Fire are bulk and base metal deposits. So that means, unlike gold or diamonds, you need roads, 24/7, 365, all-season accessible roads to get the products to market. And without that, these projects aren't viable.
The province is also supporting Martin Falls First Nation to plan a north-south access road connecting that community to the provincial highway at Nakina. Funding for the roads is part of the government's commitment to invest $1 billion into the Ring of Fire infrastructure. Molly Fromer, TPT News.
Well, days later, however, a pair of Matawa First Nations chiefs were trying to clarify that announcement made by the Premier. Friday, they held a separate press conference. They contend Wynne's earlier declaration regarding the construction of a road into the Ring of Fire was premature. This came in the face of mounting criticism from other nearby Matawa First Nations who weren't included. Shaoli Lee explains.
On Monday, the Premier was unequivocal.
We have reached an agreement to build a road into the Ring of Fire. We have reached that agreement.
But on Friday, chiefs from Webequie and Nabinimik First Nations were just as clear. They say Monday's news conference was meant to announce the extension of an existing road study.
Yes, there was a misunderstanding, but I think we need to work with that announcement, and also to make sure that we as First Nations get what we want as well too, before we can move forward with the announcement.
Wynne's remarks on Monday sparked criticism from the nearby Abamatung and Niskantaga First Nations. Both are part of a 2014 negotiations framework and 2016 jurisdictional table, which says development of roads into Matawa territories requires consent from Matawa communities.
It seems like it's the same old approach. This is what we have for you, take it or leave it type of approach. This is not right. This is 2017.
Chiefs on Friday said they want to be clear. They've only agreed to a study which would see if a road between Nabinimik and Webequie is feasible and where that road could go. Chief Johnny Yellowhead is from Nabinimik First Nation. He says he understands why other communities are upset.
Ontario was really pushing that they wanted to get this agreement between Webequie and Nabinimik signed off. And I didn't know there was wasn't properly addressed that there was going to be a big announcement. So, with the two First Nations, I would be upset too.
Also present at Friday's news conference was the chief of Mishki-Gogaming First Nation, who's now throwing his support behind the road study. Mishki-Gogaming is located just south of Pickle Lake, and a road linking Webequie and Nabinamik would bring significant traffic to his region.
There's jobs, there's economic opportunities as well. There's improvement as well in all aspects in our community area, here around neighboring municipalities as well. They'll benefit from it.
Matawa chiefs wanted to emphasize that the 2014 framework for negotiations and 2016 jurisdiction table are still valid, and any road development would only happen with the consent of Matawa First Nations. Shaoli Lee, TBT News.
Meanwhile, Ontario NDP leader Andrea Horwath also weighed in on the Wynne government's announcement this week regarding the east-west road from Pickle Lake into the Ring of Fire, on which construction could begin by 2019. Horwath says she takes issue with the fact that not all parties involved in the plan to build an east-west corridor to the site have agreed to the terms.
Certainly I'm hopeful that we actually finally get some action, but we know that there's also a solution that didn't include all of the parties that were at the table, and I think that the best solution would include all of the parties that were at the table. Unfortunately, for some reason, Kathleen Wynne could not make that happen. It's not surprising. She tends to be a very divisive person. I don't know the details, but it's not surprising to me. She's let down a lot of communities over the years.
Horwath says the time wasted trying to develop the Ring of Fire over the past decade is shameful, and she adds the people of northwestern Ontario need to see an investment from the federal government to help move things forward. Meanwhile, Ontario PC leader Patrick Brown has also spoken up on the topic. Brown chastises the province for doing nothing to advance the project until now. He says the announcement only came because we're a year away from an election, and he says any promise Kathleen Wynne makes on the Ring of Fire will be broken if she wins again. Well, the other major player in the Ring of Fire is chiming in on the province's plan. KWG Resources owns a large number of mining claims in the Ring of Fire and has been promoting the construction of a rail line into the area. Now, the First Nations would be the proponents for the east-west road, which would connect them to the provincial highway network and lead to a mine proposed by Noront Resources. The province also announced initial plans to work with the Martin Falls First Nation to explore a north-south road to the Ring of Fire along KWG's preferred route. Vice President Mo Levine says he's encouraged to see those communities are pro-development.
They are progressing exactly in the right direction. We're really quite pleased that there's finally some movement on this file. Having a road access to the Ring of Fire is very key to the development. As you might know, we've been promoting building a railroad to the Ring of Fire to make sure that the mining of the chromite deposits is economic. But the mines themselves will always also need a road. So we're very glad that Premier Wynne was able to get at least 3 First Nations on board.
Wynne estimated the environmental assessment for the east-west road could begin in January, with construction getting underway in 2019. Levine calls those timelines a bit optimistic, but says he hopes to see the road begin as soon as possible. Kenora MP Bob Nault has taken Premier Kathleen Wynne to task in a sternly worded letter regarding a lack of consultation and commitment to 4-laning the highway between Kenora and the Manitoba border. In a letter addressed to several members of the provincial government, Nault says he's disappointed and disturbed by the province's decision laid out in its Northern Highways Program report to delay the twinning of Highway 17 until at least 2021. He cites safety concerns and notes that the highway is the only one leading into the region from the west. He continues, saying by denying the North this project, the province is single-handedly stunting the economic growth of the region. Nault adds he's spoken with Northern Development Minister Michael Gravel, who he believed was in support of the project, but to see the new timeline revealed without consultation or notification is unacceptable. He also expresses his frustration with Transport Minister Stephen Del Duca, who had agreed to meet with stakeholders and the 5 chiefs of the First Nations affected. But Nault contends, despite numerous attempts to contact the minister, there's been no response. Nault concludes the letter by saying he was pleased to hear about the province's commitment to the Ring of Fire, but insists the North has much more to offer. Greenstone Gold's Hard Rock Mine project is expected to change the economic landscape of the Northwest. And Thursday evening, company officials provided an update on the project to members of the public. Adam Riley has the details.
This is the proposed site of Greenstone Gold Mine's Hard Rock project, located less than 10 kilometers south of Geraldton. The open pit mine would provide hundreds of jobs throughout its life cycle. The project has now entered the environmental assessment phase, which Greenstone Gold officials say could take up to a year. At a project update meeting on Thursday, Greenstone Gold spokesperson Ian Horn said the company is now working on securing $1.25 billion in financing for the project.
It takes approximately a year for them to go through the process that they have to review it, evaluate it, get public comment, and then recommend to the ministers to approve the project. And then it has to go in front of cabinet, and the cabinet will approve or not, and then the decision will be announced.
Horn adds while they wait, they've engaged local support for the project.
I think one of the very positive things that we have, though, is that we've been working closely with the First Nations and the Métis and been earning their support to move this project through various stages. So as we jump all these numerous hurdles, there's going to be a higher level of confidence.
Eric Lamontagne is the project's general manager. He says the construction phase of the project will generate 650 jobs, with a further 550 jobs created when mine operations come online. Lamontagne says this will have a huge economic impact on the district.
We calculate a return by different contract and supply by local area, Geraldton, Long Lac, Beermore, up to $500 million during the life of mine, and for Thunder Bay up to close to $2 billion return during the life of mine.
In addition to Thursday's presentation, the federal government plans to hold 3 public information sessions on the project next month. Adam Riley, TBT News.
Police are investigating a suspicious death on the Pikangikum First Nation. Just after 9:30 last Saturday evening, police responded to an unconscious male in the school area of Airport Road. Police transported the man to the nearby nursing station for treatment, but 34-year-old Bronson Lee Strang was pronounced dead just 30 minutes after being discovered. A post-mortem will be conducted in Toronto, but a date has not yet been set. The OPP Northwest Crime Unit and Forensic Identification Services are investigating the circumstances surrounding the death. Anyone with information related to the investigation is asked to contact the OPP or Crime Stoppers. Well, coming up after the break, a cross-border bridge project receives funding in Rainy River. A major cross-border announcement for the Rainy River District. The federal government has stated it will spend $13 million on the construction of a new international bridge between the towns of Rainy River, Ontario and Baudette, Minnesota. The existing vehicle bridge was built in 1959 and was mainly paid for by the United States. Officials on both sides of the border say it's time for it to be replaced. The project involves the design and construction of a new bridge and the removal of the existing structure. The new bridge will include wider lanes and shoulders, guide rails, a sidewalk, and an improved load capacity. MPP Don Rusnak was in Rainy River this week to announce the $13 million from the Building Canada Fund. The U.S. will spend an equal amount for the joint project. The province will be responsible for all remaining costs for the Canadian portion of the investment. Construction is expected to begin next February. High school students from the Matawa First Nations may soon have a combined school and student residence in Thunder Bay. City officials and Matawa have announced a proposal that would see the former Grandview Lodge Seniors Home granted to Matawa and then converted into a student education center and care center. Corey Nordstrom has the details.
Grandview Lodge has been sitting vacant on Lily Street since January of 2016. The city had been trying to sell it without much success. But now, the 60-year-old building could have a new lease on life. The idea is to repurpose it to house high school students from the 9 Matawa First Nations coming to the city. Matawa CEO David Paul Achini-Pishkum says with the Student Education and Care Center, the teenagers can be looked after while they attend high school and won't be on their own.
So that facility, we believe, will provide, an environment that where it's going to be it's going to be a home for them. Family setting, and that's our vision, and that's our goal.
Councillor Ian Angus says the benefit to students is beyond monetary calculation, and that's why the city is considering giving the building to Matawa free of charge. The move comes about a year after a coroner's inquest into the death of 7 First Nations students in Thunder Bay recommended bringing safer accommodations for visiting First Nations youth trying to get an education in Thunder Bay.
We're prepared to do what we can within our powers to facilitate a much safer environment for the students here in Thunder Bay. We've got reports coming relative to the safe water courses. We've got other reports that are being presented, and so we're going to continue to work on those aspects as well.
Though safety and education are the top priority, City Realty Services Manager Joel DePuter says this facility could be great for incoming students from an educational and leisurely point of view.
In addition to the building, the grounds are spectacular. It provides all sorts of amenity space for the students, and it's just situated well within the city's hub of recreational resources that can give those students more to do and actually save costs to Matawa as well. The city wants to have those facilities utilized.
The current Matawa Learning Center is full with 50 students. The new one will house twice as many. The final decision will come August 28th when City Council decides whether to grant the building to Matawa. If it all goes ahead, the renovated building could be complete by next September. Corey Nordstrom, TBT News.
The federal and provincial governments have announced a combined $10 million in additional funding to ensure the safety of Aboriginal students at Dennis Franklin Cromartie High School. In July, the Anishinaabe Nation organized an emergency summit to deal with what it called a safety crisis for DFC students. An action plan was developed, and this week the province and Ottawa announced financial support for the plan. The federal contribution of $4.6 million will go toward on-call support workers, programming for students, and increased accommodation rates for boarding homes. The province is providing $5.5 million to enhance education options in the students' home communities and more resources for those who wish to travel to other urban centers. And Deputy Grand Chief Derek Fox says they're pleased with how it came together.
To see that before school starts, that there's going to be some funding there for some of these initiatives is extremely exciting, and at the same time, I don't like to say the word cautious optimism. It's more of I'm optimistic. I'm positive in that our students are going to have a better year. That we're all going to have a better year as citizens of Thunder Bay.
The federal funding will be provided annually for the next 3 years. The provincial funding is for this upcoming school year to meet the immediate needs of NAN students. OPP in Kenora have recovered the body of a 27-year-old man from the Winnipeg River. Last Sunday evening, a canoe carrying 2 women and a man capsized in an area with a rushing current. The OPP Underwater Search and Recovery Unit was called to the scene Monday and located the victim, who has been identified as Luke Barron of Kenora. A post-mortem was scheduled for Tuesday. Police say none of the occupants of the canoe were wearing life jackets. Well, coming up next, retracing the steps of his hero, a French amputee is following Terry Fox's example. 37 years after Terry Fox's iconic Marathon of Hope came to an end, another man is following in his footsteps. He's from France, but he's making the journey across Canada in memory of his hero. Colton Prale has the story.
At the age of 17, Guy Amalfitano lost his leg to osteogenic sarcoma. It's the same form of bone cancer that Terry Fox had. Since then, he's been inspired by the Canadian icon, even completing a pair of marathons around the borders of his home country, France, to raise over €85,000 for cancer research. And for more than the past 100 days, Guy has been following in Fox's footsteps across Canada. But it's not a journey he's taken alone.
I felt him with me the whole time. I knew that these were markers that he had been. Everywhere I went was in his footsteps. People would come out of their homes to tell me how much I reminded them of his journey.
Friday, he reached the Terry Fox Monument on Highway 1117.
I saw him in pictures, in videos. I've dreamed of this moment. For the last 4 years, I've prepared for this moment. When I saw him, it was surreal. I always admired him, but I couldn't have foreseen the immensity of finally seeing him in person.
It was a moment of reverence, of unfettered emotion. The small crowd that was there to greet him watched in silence as Guy knelt in front of his hero.
I asked him permission to continue his dream. His dream ended not too far from here, but I want to continue it a little further.
Over the next 3 months, Guy will finish the journey that Fox started, ending in Vancouver in early November. In that time, he hopes his journey will be an inspiration for fellow cancer victims, that he may inspire them the way Terry Fox inspired him.
It's a devastating disease, something that struck Guy, that struck Terry, and that will strike millions more. But for those, Guy has a message, one of hope. Never let your arms fall and keep your head high. If he can do it, anything is possible. Colton Prale, TBT News.
And Amalfitano is now heading west to finish the marathon that his hero started so long ago. Well, thanks for tuning in to this edition of Northwest News Week. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.